Hello guys, I'm Futureal. I stream 5 days a week over on twitch.tv/Futureal, and in this video we have just finished watching the Diablo 2 Resurrected 2.4 development stream hosted by MrLlamaSc. There's going to be a link in the description here for the VODs. You can check it out in its entirety if you are interested in that. And we are briefly just going to go over some of the changes that Blizzard is intending to implement. Now, it's important to understand that these are all PTR changes. And for you who are not familiar with what that means, is that they are suggested changes. These changes will all be implemented to the game in a PTR server, a public test realm, where the community will be able to play the game and give feedback on the changes that they have suggested. So these changes that I'm going to talk about here are by no means permanent. They are no means exactly as stated, but as a suggestion, this is what Blizzard wants to do. Now, if you enjoy this Diablo 2 Resurrected video and the content in here, please leave me with a subscription and a like, and leave your comment down below with what you want to see in the next video and your thoughts about the changes for D2R. We're going to get into the information right now, so buckle up, get some snacks, and I will go through it as fast as I can. So some of the major changes that we will be getting into here is, first of all, they have introduced a suggestion for a 4-month ladder duration. Personally, for someone who plays the game a lot like me, I think 4 months is good. I'm not really sure how it's going to play out with the community because it's less catered to casual people, and I think the player base in Diablo 2 Resurrected is quite a bit older than maybe other games. People started playing the game when, 20 years ago. Now they may have partners, children, responsibilities, work, and they can only play a very, very certain small amount of time. And it could get a little short for those people. But for myself, for a more dedicated player, I think 4 months sounds okay. So they have confirmed that there are going to be ladder rune words, like we're talking about new ladder rune words. And the way that they're going to do these is that they're going to make rune words that exist for that ladder season, and when the ladder season ends, they will then be transferred over. That's one thing, they'll be transferred over to non-ladder, but that also triggers the ability to make these rune words on respectively single player and on non-ladder. I don't really like segregated content like this. I was talking about it earlier today on stream. I think it's really, really bad. But out of a bad situation, if they do have some sort of automatic system where you can make these after they have been in their current iteration on the ladder server, I guess it's okay. I wish it's not like this, but I think it's something that you would learn to live with if you are a single player in this game. So they were talking about something they called stash rollover. Like, it was highlighted on my stream not too long ago that what will happen with the shared stash once you reach your second ladder season. The first ladder season is fine, but when that character moves to non-ladder, what happens to the shared stash? Because now you literally have 2 iterations of the shared stash that earlier did not. They didn't share a stash tab, right? Because you had a non-ladder and a ladder character. Once the ladder character gets moved to non-ladder, now you're suddenly supposed to use the same shared stash. They have fixed this by making the shared stash a personal stash on the character that you move over, and but it's only going to stay like that as a withdrawal. You can only remove items from it. You cannot put in new items. Meaning that you will have 6 stash tabs on a character that is moved from ladder to non-ladder. But 3 of these you can only withdraw from. So that they mean by that is that you're supposed to spend the next season removing these items and sort them out on your other characters. I think this is a good compromise. I like this, even though I think that the stash tabs in the game are reversed for what they should be right now. I would much rather have 3 personal tabs and 1 shared. Then you can use the shared stash to move around items between your characters, and that's completely fine. But you would have a much higher capacity on each individual character to store loot. That's how I would have done it. we touched slightly upon the new rune words that I was talking about. So there are going to be new rune words, and there's going to be a lot of new rune words. This was confirmed by the devs, and it's also intended that there's going to be new rune words for every season that is upcoming for the foreseeable future. If this means 4 seasons, if it means 6 seasons, I have no idea, but this is something that they intend to last for a longer amount of time. And also the same system with when the season ends, items are moved over to non-ladder, and then the rune word becomes available for non-ladder and single player. So one of the major gists of this entire development stream that I've been watching is Blizzard's desire to make lesser builds more viable. They want to create build diversity, and they have basically said that they're not going to touch classes that are already strong or builds that are already strong, but they're going to take builds that are more niche and they're going to bring them up to a more viable state. You're not going to be able to run your Summon Druid as the same efficiency as a Blizzard Sorceress. You're not going to be able to run your Zealot the same way as you run a Poison Necro. But they are going to take some of these fringe builds and make them playable. I think this is a very good change. I hope that it's not going to change any end game. I think the end game is very important to keep as it is. But I'm all for changing the worst characters in a way that makes them a bit more viable. They also talked heavily about changing cast speed and cast speed breakpoints and how that works, particularly for skills that have a cooldown, like for instance Blizzard, Fissure, Summon Valkyrie, and all those kinds of things. Also the clone for your assassin. Many of these cooldowns have been greatly reduced to increase the fluidity of the build. I think these are all good changes, and I don't think they make a massive difference for the endgame. So we're going to talk a little bit about each individual class. They went quickly through all the classes, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. First, they started with the Amazon, and for the Amazon, there aren't really that many things to do. There was a couple of things that I picked up on that I think is important to highlight, and then first of all, it was the unused skills. So the passive and magic skills, particularly the dodge, evade, and all those kinds of things. The Valkyrie is very underused because of the massive cooldown to cast speed, and the Amazon's cast speed is terrible in the first place. These are all being tweaked. I'm hoping that they are being tweaked in a way that doesn't upset the endgame builds. But there was something that I did catch, and they mentioned that Lightning's Fury has now less synergies. I really hope that it's not going to upset the strength of the Lightning's Fury build. It is a very strong build, but I think it's unfair to reduce the power of this build for those who do love the Javazon. And it's a concern, but I hope that they're going to do this the correct way. So as for the Assassin, this is one of the characters that have the most changes. I wrote down in my list here massive changes to this character, particularly in martial arts, but also in shadow disciplines. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out from this character that you are going to like if you're an Assassin player. If you like playing some of the mods, if it's POD, if it's Median XL / Path of Diablo, Project Diablo 2, in any of these, many people do like the Assassin, and particularly the martial arts tree. I also think that they have boosted the fire traps. They have made Death Sentry have less synergies. It's synergizing a little bit differently. I really do hope that it does not interfere with the classic Lightning Trap build, which was a pretty strong build. So I'm a little bit afraid for how this one is going to work. But as for now, I'm positive to the changes that are suggested for the Assassin. So we have arrived at the Barb, and I do like the way that they intended to deal with the Barb. I'm one of those who, I feel like myself, I am a pretty good Whirlwind Barb player. I don't feel like Whirlwind is in a particularly bad state. Yes, it is a slower build than anything else, but it's also a melee build. You feel quite powerful when you play it. You feel quite safe. You have good survivability. The damage is lacking, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe some sort of like splash introduction would have been good, but it's a change that is almost too big, and it's really going to upset the character balance. What they're doing in here is that they are tweaking some of the combat spells and also the mastery spells. Mostly in the synergy area, particularly like Berserk is now not going to have synergy with Shout, because Shout gives you 0 defense, so that makes no sense. Berserk gives you 0 defense when you use it, so increasing your defense with Shout makes absolutely no sense. That synergy is going to be moved over to Battle Orders, which is a great change. Will it make the build even stronger? Yeah, it quite possibly will. The Berserker Barb is going to be insane. We're just going to have to wait and see. As it stands now, the Berserker Barb is the best magic finder in the game, giving him even more survivability with a higher health pool. I mean, it might be a little crazy, but we will see what comes out of that. There are also minor changes to some of the other talents that the synergizers will move around. So as for the Druid, the fire skills have seen a buff. Both the fire damage and the physical damage that are taken from his fire spells, they are being increased at a higher gear level, and they're meant to be viable in hell difficulty. They are also looking onto the summons, particularly the wolves and the ravens. They have been given higher damage, and the wolves also now have added cold damage to their attacks, making them more viable compared to the physical damage that they used to have. There was also mentioned that you will still not be able to summon all your summons at once or even multiple. So even with these changes, I do feel like the Summon Druid has a ways to go. Also, a quick mention about the Druid. They have also done the same thing as I mentioned before with the Amazon, where they changed the lockout after you cast a long spell. So for instance, if you cast the Volcano, many of you know that you're going to have a really long cooldown before you now can cast your Fissure. This has been greatly reduced, and it's going to make the build feel more fluent to play. So we're jumping on to the Necromancer, and the gist of it here is that bone skills will have a massive improvement. I'm assuming that means Bone Spear, it means Bone Spirit, it means Teeth. They will be much more viable at a higher gear level in the endgame, and to be fair, they are pretty crappy the way they are now. I hope it's not going to upset the balance between summons, between Poison Nova and the new this Bone Spear build, or the Bone Necro build that we all know from the old days. I am a little bit skeptical to this change. It might be a little crazy, but that being said, I'm still happy that they're looking into it. I really like the build. I've played it on mods before, and I hope that they can make this work without it being too powerful. So for some other changes that they're also doing for the Necromancer, they are boosting bone armor, making it more viable, more absorb, so that you are more likely to put more points in it. They're also starting to revamp more of the curses. For now, they're looking into the Weaken spell. They're going to make that a lot stronger, and they also said that they are looking into other curses that they want to change in the future. As of now, there is no plan to make a Desecrate-like spell that you might know from, for instance, Project Diablo 2, where you can put a pile of corpses on the ground and you can create your summons. You will still have to run to Pindleskin to get your free corpses. As for the Paladin is pretty strong the way he is. He can play Zealer, he can play Hammerdin, he can play Smiter, he can play Oradin. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with a Paladin, so he will just see minor changes, but some of the changes that will come is a big change to Holy Bolt and Fist of Heavens. There has been added a chance to pierce on the Holy Bolt version of this, and it's going to greatly improve the DPS and how it feels to play this character. This is a very interesting change. I feel like this might be very, very strong for PvP. Now, I'm not a PvPer. I do play PvM. I do actually currently play a Fist of Heavens Paladin in Project Diablo 2. You should check out those videos. But I do like this build quite a lot. And they also said that they're going to change the cast frames for this spell. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this goes. It might be a good alternative to the Hammerdin if tuned properly. So the Sorceress, the first thing for the Sorceress on the screen was this character is already in a good place. And we know that. The Sorceress is by far the most versatile and strongest character in the game if you look at all aspects. Yes, she's going to get outperformed in every area by one specific build from another character, but all in all, the Sorceress is the most versatile character in the game, and I think that the Sorceress is in a very good place. As for the changes that they want to do, is they want to boost some of the lesser spells in the Fire and the Lightning tree. You know, Blaze, those kinds of things. They have given them buffs. They seemed like minor changes that are not going to do very much to the average player, but they will bring those spells up to a level whereas you can make fun builds and play around with them. They have also created more viability for the cold armor spells. I heard something about moving some synergies around. They have made them more viable, and I think that these are changes that will diversify the way that you can play your Sorceress. Also, they have changed the Hydra. The Hydra spell has been changed. They didn't really go into detail with exactly what they have done, but I'm assuming that they have made it so that you can either summon the Hydras faster, or you can summon more of them, or they have a longer duration. Something like this. Hydras will be more viable, but will they be enough viable? That is a question that we will have to see on the PTR. But here is the big one. For all you 109 cow farmers out there, Nova and Thunderstorm are making a return. These builds are now going to be viable. Nova is coming back. How strong it's going to be, we will just have to find out on the public test realm. But as of the suggestions by Blizzard at this moment, the Nova build is coming back with Thunderstorm synergy. It has the potential to be quite massive. So that was the characters. They started talking about Mercenaries, and the gist of it is very simply that they have made Mercenaries for other acts than Act 2 more viable. They have gotten boosted resistances, boosted damage, and very importantly, some of these new Rune Words that have been introduced will also be catered for Mercenaries. There's a very, very cool change to the Act 5 Mercenary that he will cast Battle Cry. Battle Cry will reduce defense and physical resistance and damage on the targeted hits, and it will greatly improve physical damage. So the Act 5 Mercenary might see some play now. And specifically with these new Rune Words, while we don't yet know what they are, but they were said to specifically be catered for Mercenaries in some of these cases. We're also getting a reappearance of some of the legacy, I could maybe say, Rune Words that have existed in the game but never been implemented, like Plague, for instance. The Plague Rune Word is now making an appearance in 2.4. And we don't fully know the stats of this Rune Word yet, but both Plague and Pattern are Rune Words that will make an appearance in the first ladder season. There's also going to be a lot of other Rune Words, so we just have to stay tuned and see what that's all about. They also wanted to make a point out of saying that set items was getting boosted. This is not the elite tier sets that you might know. You're not going to see any Immortal Kings or Tal Rasha set boosts of any significance. This is more about the offsets. The very weak sets that you would normally just vendor, they have gotten some tweaks to make them a little bit more viable so that you could use them in the mid-game and maybe make some fringe build around them. I think this is a good change. As again, I said before, I think it's very important that they don't mess around with the end game, and this, in my opinion, will not do anything to upset the end game for now. Now, this is one that was kind of hard for me to swallow. I have to admit that this is probably the one that I object the most to. They are changing area levels in the game. For now, it's the Ruined Temple and the Arachnid's Lair. They are being given area level 85. Now, I'm not inherently saying that that's a bad thing, because we kind of need new areas to farm, or maybe just want new areas to farm. So in that sense, it's okay, but I just think it's a very dangerous can of worms to open. It can lead to very unwanted changes in the future. So I'm very tentative to precisely this one. But if this is a one-off, it's okay. If it's something that's going to escalate and spin out of control, well, this is where it started. Also, one more thing. You have to do the Compelling Orb. Come to peace with it, guys. You have to do Act 3. You are not going to be able to get boosted through Act 3 anymore. You have to farm all the pieces and the flail and smash the Compelling Orb to be able to enter Durance of Hate. Enjoy. So towards the end of the video, or towards the end of the broadcast, they had some Q&A from, I think this was primarily from MrLlamaSc's community. These are just answers to questions that they had. I'm not going to bother listing up all these questions. If you want to watch the entire VOD, I will put the link to the VOD in the description of this video. I encourage you to take a look at it if you are interested in that. But for now, we are quickly going to go through answers to the questions that were asked. And I will answer them in a way so that you actually do understand what the question was. They do plan to make changes to Diablo clone to make it more accessible to more people without being a member of a secret society. There are no plans to increase the amount of character slots that you can have on the ladder. It is likely that there will be more balance changes in the future. There are no new endgame content or bosses planned at the moment. There will be added no new stash tabs at this time. Blizzard are working on improved spam protection to protect against spam bots and bots in the game. There are no new uniques or editing of existing uniques planned for the foreseeable future. There are new heraldic cube recipes. There was hinted at possibly being able to upgrade set items. Stacking gems and runes will most likely never happen. There is a consideration for making a currency tab at the moment. Loot filter is also a consideration, but is as this far seen as quite difficult to do. PvP changes are intended to be slight, and they are not intended to make a massive difference, and this is also something that will be tested heavily on the PTR. There will be no Players X command on Battle.net. Kek W. Of course there won't. And the last thing I want to remark is that I was quite disappointed to hear that there are no news for console players. I'm not a console player. I don't even own a console. I haven't owned a console in many years. But when they did decide to make this game available on the console, I did expect them to have news for those who do play the game on console. I think consoles players were treated really badly on the release of the game. There was a lot of systems that didn't work, and yet again, console players are put in second. They're second in line to everything. I think it's really unfair. That being said, we just have to be patient, and I think that they will figure out a way to also make the game as good for console players as it is on the computer. And lastly, it's time for my conclusion. Now, I want to initially say that we did talk about this stream and what was going to happen on my broadcast this morning. And I was quite skeptical. I was afraid that they were going to make two massive changes. I was afraid that it was going to upset the character balance in the game, that it's going to change the meta, that what we once knew is not going to be correct anymore. And whilst there are some of these changes that I am skeptical to, I think overall I am positive to the vast majority of these changes. I think it's going to create a more diverse game. I think it's going to create a wider audience. The game is going to be more approachable because you can pretty much, buy the game, start a character, just start clicking on things, and it's going to work. A big problem in Diablo 2 from the early days was that only very few things actually worked to play. You had to play specific things almost to even play through the game. It was very, very hard if you chose something fringe that you made up yourself. And this is going to make the game much more approachable for new players. This is something that I do like. But let's face it, guys. None of us can foresee what's going to happen to this game with these changes. These changes might be in 3 months regarded as really good. They might be regarded as really bad. For now, it's a public test realm that we have to go to check these things. We didn't get a date, but it's the Blizzard soon TM. And with that, I think I'm going to call this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until the next video, take care, and I will see you guys then.